Most people think you need a ton of money to start an Airbnb, but my first property and one crazy idea literally paid for itself. It covered all my expenses, and it also helped me move from California to Hawaii. What's going on, guys? My name is Cam. Today I'm going to be talking about how house hacking changed my life. So this was my first home. It was nothing fancy, needed a ton of work, low startup cost, just a regular house with a garage. I didn't come from money. I also didn't have a big budget, but I knew I wanted to build something, I just didn't know what. Long story short, after moving to California with my girlfriend at the time, we ended up purchasing a property in Ridgecrest, California. The house was in pretty poor condition, but I saw it had a lot of potential. Through the buying process, I learned a strategy about getting close with the seller. Now, this isn't very common, and your real estate agent might frown upon this, but I was able to get close with the seller and actually meet him from time to time on a personal basis, and we got to know each other pretty well. How I ended up doing this is when we did a walkthrough on the property, the owner was still there, and I got a moment with him alone to ask him some questions. We ended up exchanging phone numbers, and we set up some times to just kind of discuss with each other and really figure out what we both wanted. Again, this isn't a very common practice in real estate, but it ended up working really well. I was able to negotiate with the seller one-on-one. I was able to make sure that he was going to get what he wanted out of my offer. And likewise, he was able to help me in the selling aspect. Long story short, he was able to provide me with seller credits, which translate to money. So essentially, the seller can credit you a certain amount of money, and that money has to be used in the transaction or before escrow is closed. So what we did is I used my seller credits that he allotted me, and I put them towards my interest rate, meaning I bought down points to lower my interest rate. So moving into the home, we were already in a great position, and after getting the appraisal, we actually had $30,000 in equity into the home already. So a quick breakdown, your equity is essentially your home's value minus what you owe. This was a great start to moving into our home, and it built this warm and fuzzy feeling of we got a great deal. So upon moving into the home, my girlfriend at the time, she pointed out that, hey, the carpet's pretty stained, we should probably pull it back. Unmatched paint on the walls, we should probably paint that. So we started painting. Hey, I don't really like this popcorn ceiling. You get where I'm going with this. So one thing after another, this house turned into a construction zone. We just kept tackling tasks, kept going. On our weekends, when we weren't working, we were doing projects, and we basically just kept building and building and building and making it nicer. And all of this is great, but it's not free. So we eventually got to a point where we were running low on funds. We needed a new strategy. The house actually had a separated or detached garage, meaning it was not connected to our main primary home. This garage was roughly about 1,000 square foot. It already had plumbing built into the garage and was just far enough away to build a fence in between the two. And at one point, it hit me, this could be another home or livable space. I began researching on what it's gonna cost, what it's gonna take, permits, construction costs, what all I can do myself, and what needs to be done. The most expensive part was the structure. It was there. It had a concrete slab, it had 4 walls, and it had a roof. All it needed was walls, a shower, and the rest is just cosmetic. So I kept the conversion super budget friendly. I knew this was gonna be a rental, so I didn't want to go overboard. Anything and everything I bought was on clearance or was on Facebook Marketplace. Everything needed to be a steal deal. So with lots of sweat and blood, and about 4 months later, we finally had it up and running. Grand total cost was around $15,000. Some people might say, how the heck did you do it for only $15,000? YouTube and a lot of sweat. This was not easy, sometimes not fun, but I learned so much, and the skills that I gained, I can now carry on and do at my next property with so much more confidence. We live in a generation now where we take for granted that we have AI, the internet, YouTube, to literally research and figure out how to do anything. Don't think that there's a task for you that's too big and you can't handle. For me, I knew nothing about construction, remodeling, building, drywall. You can accomplish any sort of remodeling project. With that being said, I know there's some things that people may recommend you just hire out, and I totally respect that. For me, one of those things was electrical. But I guarantee you, if you really wanted to do something yourself, you can do it if you take the time to make sure you're doing it correctly and safely. About 4 months later, we finally get the Airbnb live. And through this whole process, people were calling me crazy. You don't have a garage anymore. Your home value is gonna go down. Where are you gonna park your cars? I had so much backlash on converting the garage into a livable space that I started to question it myself. But something in me knew this was the right decision and this was gonna pay off. In our first month in 2023, going live on Airbnb, we made $1,800. When you get your first booking, you will understand all the struggle and the late nights that you worked making it possible. It will pay off. Side note I want to throw in here, I had somebody reach out to me after they knew that I had basically converted the home. And from the months November to October, after our first month of opening, they offered me $2,000 a month to stay in. I had just made a little bit shy of that in December, so I thought, well, they're matching my price, this could work. Long story short, I let them stay, and it was just straight chaos. Everything was off the books, everything was cash payments, and it was a nightmare. I quickly learned at a low expense, do not consider going off the books on Airbnb. If you want a cash lease or a lease agreement, this may be common sense, but have everything on paper. Have a lease agreement, even if it's month to month, 1 month, 2 months, have a cash agreement, do a background check, and treat it like a normal 6 month to year long lease. Following into September, after getting through that nightmare, we made $2,000. And through the year, it continued to pay our property expenses, including the mortgage, electricity, taxes, water, you name it. The whole property we were living on essentially for free. What to take away from this? Listen to your gut and always follow your instincts. This method of house hacking has made it possible for me to live out here and to move forward with a strategy that I know I can carry on to our next property. Through the house hacking method, it has sped up my real estate portfolio and allowed me to move and be free from the previous property in the sense that I do not have to worry about the next bill. Although yes, you should worry about it in the sense of have savings, have money set aside in case your Airbnb or property isn't cash flowing or making enough to make those initial payments. But I can tell you, I have never missed a payment on my property, and since the day of starting the Airbnb, I have never had to worry about a payment. Moving forward, the property in Ridgecrest, California has allowed me to move to Oahu, Hawaii, and since I'm living here now, the additional property that we had and were living in at the time of renting out the ADU is now on Airbnb as well. Fast forward to 2025, we are on track to make just under $50,000 in revenue. In the next video, if you'd like me to break down exactly what this translates to in profits and what I actually get to pocket from my Airbnb since moving out here, shoot a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Aloha. Have a good day.